Hey guys, tonight we are heading somewhere a little louder, a little colder, and a lot more airborne. It is the 1940s. The world is on fire, and lucky you, you have just been handed the keys to a flying death trap. That is right. You are a World War II pilot now. Or at least you will be for as long as the engine holds. And you do not forget which switch does what. Now, before you buckle in, go ahead and dim the lights. Maybe slide into bed, pull up the covers, and pretend you are not about to hear how absolutely miserable flying in one of history's most romanticized wars really was. Turn on a fan. If you have one, it helps drown out the thoughts. And if you enjoy this kind of slow factual descent into historical discomfort, consider subscribing or do not. That part is optional. Crashing into the ocean at 300 miles per hour, less so. Leave a comment letting me know what time it is where you are tuning in from. And maybe what you are drinking tonight. Hopefully not wartime instant coffee made from desperation and chalk. That said, thanks for being here. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine this. You are standing on an airfield in the middle of nowhere. It smells of fuel, burnt metal, and the distant trace of someone's very bad decision. Someone has just called your name. You look up, confused, weary, only 21 years old, and already feeling much older than your age should allow. They are pointing toward a plane. They tell you it is yours. Congratulations, and welcome to the sky. You wake to shouting. Not the kind that signals breakfast is ready, or that someone has misplaced their boots again. This is the sharp, urgent shouting that means another dangerous task has been assigned to you. It takes a moment to remember where you are. The cot beneath you feels more like a plank than a bed. The thin blanket offers little warmth, and your boots still reek of wet leather and gunpowder. The airfield is cold and loud, both damp and dusty at once. Outside, an engine coughs to life, metal groaning with a reluctant breath. This is your reality now. You are called a pilot, though that title rests heavily. 20 weeks of rush training, a checklist written in jargon, and a uniform that was clearly not designed for comfort have been given to you. You survived a test flight by avoiding crashing into your instructor, and now they have assigned you a real aircraft. Your name is painted on the side of the fuselage, but the honor is thin. It is only so they know who is inside if the wreckage must be found. You were not selected because you are exceptional, but because your eyesight passed, your blood pressure was acceptable, and you did not collapse during roll call. Around you are men who were once farmers, delivery drivers, and teachers, now all called pilots by necessity, not mastery. Breakfast was a plate of lukewarm powdered eggs and bread that barely resembled food, now sitting uneasily in your stomach. Your uniform scratches, the collar pinches, the boots never break in. Yet you wear it, because the plane does not care about your comfort, and neither does the officer who calls you forward. The walk to the tarmac is heavy with the smell of oil, fuel, and smoke from a barrel fire that hopefully does not involve meat. A mechanic smokes a tired cigarette and nods with no enthusiasm. He has seen this before, and he knows many of you will not last long. And you see your aircraft. It is powerful, loud, dangerous, beautiful, in the way a weapon is beautiful. Its body is covered in oil, mud, and fingerprints. The propeller looks serviceable, the cockpit glass is cracked, and the fuselage smells of sweat and burnt wiring. You climb into the narrow metal seat, knees pressed against the instrument panel. A greasy control stick twitches under your hand, as if trying to warn you. You flip switches, open valves, and touch gauges you only partly understand. There is no co-pilot, only you and a machine held together by blind faith and old instructions. The crew chief gives a hollow thumbs up, a gesture that feels less like encouragement and more like sealing a fate. Your helmet smells of stale fabric, your goggles fog, your oxygen mask tightens against your face. The tower clears you for takeoff. The engine groans, The tarmac rattles beneath you, and the world becomes a blur of vibration. When the wheels leave the ground, your stomach drops, and you are suspended in air with no one beside you. No training could prepare you for the sudden aloneness. The plane shudders with every gust. Every warning light feels personal. Every flicker on the panel could mean the end. You are not flying the plane so much as bargaining with it, begging gravity to allow one more safe landing. The mission ends early, called off by weather or fog, and you do not question the reason. You bank too hard, then too soft, and eventually find a rough descent. The runway rushes toward you. The landing bounces, the brakes lurch, the plane stalls, and then rests with a groan. Your breath releases like it has been held for days. Your legs shake beneath you as you climb down. Another pilot slaps your back, and someone hands you a clipboard to sign. You are one flight closer to surviving another day. You return to your bunk, passing younger recruits who stare at their planes with nervous eyes. You want to tell them it is terrifying, that the first flight does not grow easier with the second, that it may never feel easy at all. But you remain silent. You keep walking, because there will be a debrief in 20 minutes. And after that, another mission. You peel off your gloves and notice your hands are trembling. You tell yourself it is from the cold. You sit on your cot and stare at the ceiling of the tent above you. Around you, life continues as if nothing matters. Someone nearby plays cards. Someone else has drifted into sleep with a cigarette burning dangerously close to their sock. You realize that you could die tomorrow, and the world would not even pause. You are not a hero. You are little more than a passenger in a flying hazard, one that simply happens to have your name stenciled on its side. There is no quitting, no resigning, no request for reassignment. The war does not care how tired you are, and it does not care that your uniform carries the scent of fear and engine grease. The war continues, and so do you, because soon someone will knock on the wall of your tent and tell you it is time to climb back into the sky again. And you will go, because you are a pilot now. The uniform does not come first. The shouting does. Flight school is not about being handed the keys to a machine. It begins with being yelled at for standing incorrectly, or ordered to run laps because your boots are not laced quickly enough. You meet your commanding officer, not with a handshake, but with a 6-minute tirade about your posture. They call it training, but it feels more like an initiation into a cult where exhaustion and humiliation are the central teachings. You once imagined that flight school meant flying aircraft. In truth, it comes only after weeks of lectures, drills, inspections, and the endless exercise of physical hardening. Push-ups until your body feels like it no longer belongs to you. The barracks are crowded, the meals tasteless, the mattresses thin sacks of straw inside thicker sacks of lies. You are surrounded by other men who also have no idea what they are doing, each pretending that they do, because weakness is noticed, and to be noticed is to invite suffering. The day begins at 4:30, not because anything of importance is happening, but because someone decided that discipline means stripping away comfort. You shave in icy water, spill powdered coffee into a cup, and rush to formation while fastening buttons that never seem to align. If you are 30 seconds late, you are punished with laps. If your bed is not perfectly tight, you remake it under the eye of a corporal who makes remarks about your lack of precision. The training is built to make you feel small. The instructors, masters of sarcasm, have already seen every nervous mistake you will make. You are never neat enough, never fast enough, never sharp enough. Even when you manage perfection, they invent errors just to remind you of the imbalance. Quickly you learn the safest response is always, "Yes, sir," even if the command is absurd, even if it is impossible. Then come the hours in the classroom. Grainy black and white slides, chalkboard diagrams, and endless technical memorization. You repeat aircraft specifications, radio procedures, and flight physics until your mind buzzes. You tap out Morse code until the dots and dashes lose their meaning. You are tested constantly, though rarely on anything practical. Failing means punishment. Passing only earns less shouting. Days pass without flying at all, sometimes weeks. Bad weather, broken equipment, bureaucratic chaos all mean more hours of waiting, of pretending to study, of learning how to smoke or gamble, or sit still without being caught idle. You become wary of every officer, every sergeant, every clipboard. Each one could mean disaster. When you are finally brought to a trainer aircraft, it is not the sleek machine of the posters. It is an underpowered, overused death trap, held together by more tape than rivets. Your instructor looks at you with a weary expression that says he has done this too many times. You fumble with the harness, stumble over the checklist, and silently pray not to vomit. The engine sputters, your nerves follow. The takeoff is clumsy, the air feels punishing. It is less flying and more being dragged into the sky. The controls resist you, every adjustment either too much or too little. The instructor delivers calm remarks that make you feel smaller. "You are going to kill us both," spoken as though he is only noting the weather. When you land, you are told every mistake in slow, deliberate detail, each pause more painful than the last. Rarely is there praise. Not bad becomes the kindest reward you can hope for. The training continues. Surprise inspections at dawn, combat drills that simulate disaster, formation flights where one wrong move can send you into another's wing. You practice emergency procedures with the desperate hope that you will recall them while falling from the sky. You climb towers and jump into sand pits, practicing parachute drops with gear that is either outdated or impossibly heavy. No one cares if you are comfortable. Survival is the only aim. Then there are the night flights. The world outside is black. The cockpit glows faintly with instruments, but every shadow could be another plane. Your sense of up and down dissolves. Your hand cramps on the stick, and your mind whispers that you are falling even when you are told you are climbing. You do not ask questions because the answer might be worse. When you finally land, you linger in the cockpit too long. You tell yourself it is because you are savoring the moment, but you know it is because your legs will not stop shaking. You lose people along the way. Some are lost to crashes, some to breakdowns, some simply vanish, reassigned, or gone without explanation. One recruit disappears overnight, leaving behind only rumors. Perhaps he hit an instructor. Perhaps he fled. No one asks. No one dwells. There is always another recruit waiting to fill his place. The machine of war does not pause for missing pieces. You are tested endlessly in the air, on the ground, during meals, and in moments where you are barely awake. They want to see who cracks, who hesitates, who panics when something explodes without warning, which happens more often than anyone expects. Fires break out and alarms are sudden. Sometimes they are drills. Sometimes they are not. You learn to sleep lightly. Boots wait at the side of your bed, because to be unprepared is worse than to be exhausted. Eventually, they tell you that you are ready. Not because you are skilled, but because you are sufficient. Because they need bodies in cockpits. Because someone has decided that if you can take off, navigate, and land without killing anyone, you are qualified to fly straight into enemy skies. Graduation arrives with little celebration, more like a checkpoint on a production line. You receive a patch, you receive new orders, you receive a handshake from someone who will forget your name before the ink has dried. And with that, you are a pilot in name as well as in practice. You stand in line with the others, uniforms pressed, hair trimmed, backs rigid. Everyone pretends this is where they belong, that this is what they wanted. The fear is not standing just behind their eyes. No one speaks about what follows. Not yet. There is gear to collect, trains to catch, bases to report to, but all of you know what waits ahead. The sky, the missions, the enemy. Weeks have been spent breaking you down, and remolding you into something that can withstand pressure. But it is not enough. It is never enough. The shouting fades, but the weight of expectation only grows. The consequences are no longer missed meals or extra laps. The consequences now are aluminum fragments, fire, and black smoke unraveling at 15,000 feet. You lie on your back one last night in the wooden barracks, staring at a ceiling that smells of mildew and failure. Your duffel is packed. Your orders are folded into your jacket pocket. Outside, someone coughs, and someone else laughs too loudly at something that was never amusing. You close your eyes and try not to think about tomorrow, because next time you climb into a cockpit, it will not be to prove you can fly. It will be to prove you can survive. The light has not yet reached the sky, but you are awake regardless. Not by choice. You did not rise so much as get yanked from a shallow drift of half-sleep your body managed to assemble. Something buzzed past your ear a few minutes earlier. Perhaps a mosquito. Perhaps only a scrap of lint caught in a draft. It does not matter. You are awake now, stretched on a canvas cot in a tent thick with the smell of wet cloth and fuel. The air carries the odors of diesel fumes and unwashed uniforms. 5 other men share the space with you, all of them caught between boredom and sickness. You lie still, listening. The silence before dawn is never silent. Generators hum in the distance. Wooden crates clatter against the bed of a truck. A cough rips from somewhere outside, wet and violent enough to sound like lungs might follow. You consider rising, but you know what waits: cold air, lukewarm coffee, and whatever briefing has been prepared to darken your morning. Sleep here is never deep, never safe. The tent is too thin, the war too near. No one wakes you gently. Instead, your name is barked until you scramble upright. 30 seconds to stand half functional, or you will be punished with latrine duty for days. The air is damp. The blanket is too heavy to fold away, but too thin to keep you warm. Each breath fogs before your eyes. Warmth is a memory, not a presence. The stove in the corner burned out in the night, and no one refilled it. A stack of wood waits nearby, but rats have claimed it, and no one wishes to challenge them. You lower your boots to the ground and feel the bite of cold immediately. The soil is gritty, sticky with fuel stains, and unforgiving. There is no privacy here. There never is. The tent is one room shared among 6 men and countless pests, flies, lice, ants that march without hesitation across your belongings. Modesty has long been abandoned. There is no time for shame when you live where the latrine is nothing more than a hole in the ground, covered by a plank and shielded by a sheet of canvas, pretending to be a wall. You drag on trousers still damp from yesterday's rain. You pull your jacket over your shoulders, still stinking of oil and grease. The smell clings like a second skin. Every morning begins with a walk to the bulletin board. That is where the orders hang. Who flies? Who repairs? Who draws rations? Who vanishes into a reconnaissance flight that carries more risk than promise? The distance is short, but it stretches into miles when your body aches and your stomach already groans. You pass rows of other tents. Some men still sleep. Others scrape razors across their faces, steam canteens over open flames, or sit in silence. From the officer's tent, a radio spits the voice of a reporter back home, describing victories in progress that do not resemble what you see. The ground here is uneven, trampled. Tents sag. Aircraft line the strip in a crooked row, some missing entire panels, some leaking oil, some barely clinging together. Mechanics swarm them already, hands dark with grease, eyes red from lack of sleep. They do not rest. They only rotate. There is always something broken, always something burning, always something leaking. One fuselage still wears blood. No one has wiped it away. No one mentions it. Breakfast arrives in a tin mess kit. Cold beans. Gray toast. A sausage that should have been discarded, but was not. You eat because there is no choice. The mess tent keeps strict portions and strict rules. Complaints are punished. The last man who raised his voice received only raw onions and a tin of lard. He was told to be creative. Soon the briefing begins. 15 minutes. You do not know if you will fly today, but you must still appear. You must always appear. Illness does not matter. Exhaustion does not matter. Even blood does not matter if you are still breathing. The briefing follows its rhythm. Weather, enemy positions, fuel reserves, target confidence, a map with pins, a pointer tapping against the surface. Then silence while names are read. Names of those who did not return. The room absorbs the words and pretends nothing has changed. Faces remain stiff, eyes straight ahead. You pray. You do not hear the name of a friend. If you do, you push it down. There is no time for grief. There is only more work. Always more work. You move through the routine like a sleepwalker. Fuel check. Weapon check. Parachute straps. The briefing repeats itself in your head, but it feels distant, as though it belongs to someone else. You share shallow jokes with the crew, but the words skim across the surface like stones. No one asks how you slept. No one wants to hear the truth. Your helmet reeks of rubber in despair. You pull it on regardless. Goggles sit crooked. The oxygen mask has cracked near the vent. You hold it carefully to keep the leak from stealing your air. You could request a new one, but the paperwork will vanish into a desk drawer. Outside, the sun has risen, but it offers no warmth. The sky is gray, the wind cuts like blades, and the ground feels harder than it should. Perhaps it is your nerves. Perhaps it is the weight of understanding that this is not a dream. This is life now. Life in a tent full of men who age faster than time. Life eating food that tastes like nothing. Life strapping into machines that might disintegrate above the clouds. Once you were a student. Once you were a mechanic. Once you were a farmhand. Now you are a number on a manifest. A body for the sky. You think about writing home, but the thought drifts away. What could you write? Still here, still tired, still trying not to die. It is not the sort of thing anyone sends on a postcard. You go through the motions. Zip the jacket, adjust the straps, run your hands over the plane like that will make it safer. The mechanics give you a quick nod. They have done their best. The rest is up to luck, skill, and engine mood swings. Someone shouts your name. It is time. You climb up, one boot on the wing, one hand gripping the side of the fuselage. The metal is cold. The cockpit is colder. You slide in and everything familiar and awful returns. The smell, the cramped space, the stiff controls. You strap in and wait. Above you, the sky is still gray. Inside you, the dread has not left, and the mosquitoes will be waiting when you get back. If you get back, the flight has been scrubbed. Fog rolled in heavy over the strip, and someone finally decided to call it before half the unit flew into a mountain they could not see. You are grounded for now, which sounds like a break, until you realize that downtime in a war zone only means you are not dying in the air. You are dying in increments on the ground, surrounded by bad food and worse thoughts. You walk toward the mess tent because it is what everyone else is doing. There is no real hunger. Your body runs on stress and habit now. But skipping breakfast is not an option. If you do not show up when food is being handed out, they assume you are dead, or you will be reassigned to something worse, like latrine duty during a cholera outbreak or guarding a fuel depot with one flashlight and a pistol that jammed 3 days ago. The mess line is already forming. It is the slow-moving collection of identical unshaven faces. Most of you have not bathed properly in a week. Everyone smells like gun oil, foot powder, and cheap soap that barely lathers. You stand in line holding your tin mess tray, watching steam rise from the mess tent like it is both a promise and a threat. Inside, the smell hits you. Warm food, technically, but layered with something else cleaning chemicals, something burnt, and the unmistakable odor of meat, reheated too many times to still be called meat. It is not appetizing. It is just hot. And hot means edible. Probably. You reach the front of the line. The cook does not look at you. A cigarette hangs from the corner of his mouth. His apron was once white, but is now stained with years of grease. He slops something yellow onto your tray. Powdered eggs. Not scrambled, not fried, just eggs. A dehydrated paste resurrected with hot water and low expectations. They taste like disappointment and chalk. Next, a pale rectangular slice lands beside the eggs with a wet slap. Spam again. The same compressed brick of meat byproduct you have eaten every morning since arriving. It jiggles slightly, somehow both too firm and too soft. You cut it with your fork. It resists like it knows what is coming. You chew it anyway. You always chew it. The salt hits first, then something vaguely pork-like, followed by a metallic aftertaste that lingers like regret. There is toast, too, if you can call it that. Bread toasted at some point in its life cycle, then abandoned in a warming tray until it absorbed the tense humidity. It sags when you lift it. You eat it anyway, because it is better than nothing. And the coffee is worse. It is not coffee, only brown, warm, and bitter. That is where the similarities end. It comes from a powdered mix that contains things coffee should never contain. The texture is gritty, enough to make you question the water source. But it is caffeinated, allegedly, and that is all that matters. You sit at a long wooden table next to men chewing without enthusiasm. No one talks much. Small talk exists, but it is forced. No one wants to ask, "How are you?" The answer is always, "Alive," and that is as far as it goes. You eat in silence, listening to the dull hum of generators, the thud of boots, and the static of a field radio that never broadcasts good news. Someone lights a cigarette before finishing their meal. You used to hate that, the way it mixed with the food smell. Now it does not matter. You will probably light one too, just to keep your hands from shaking. Smoking here is not a habit. It is a social agreement. You do it to look busy. You do it because it fills the time between being yelled at and being airborne. You do it because everyone else does, and no one wants to be the man who copes differently. After a while, someone cracks a joke. It is not funny, but people laugh nervously, automatically. It is not about humor. It is about proving you can still laugh, that you have not gone completely numb. The man who made the joke does not smile. He stares at his tray, chewing slowly like he is unsure whether he is eating food or just enduring it. The officers eat separately. They have their own tent. Their food is not much better, but they get real plates and sometimes jam if the supply truck makes it through. You are not allowed in there unless summoned. Being summoned usually means you have done something very right or very wrong. Neither is good. Sometimes there is mail. Letters from home get passed out during meals. Today, there is nothing. You have not gotten a letter in 2 weeks. Maybe the mail is slow. Maybe the truck was destroyed. Maybe no one wrote you. You try not to think about it. A loudspeaker crackles to life, announcing something you cannot quite make out. The man next to you mutters that it is never good. He is right. The loudspeaker rarely delivers happy news. It usually means a delay, a change, or a casualty list. Sometimes it is just a weather update that ruins your schedule. Mostly it is the war reminding you it owns your calendar. You finish your food, if it can be called that. The eggs have congealed into a single mass. The span is gone somehow, though you do not remember chewing the last bite. The toast remains uneaten, but you keep it. It might serve as a coaster, a weapon, or emergency insulation. Outside, the sky is still heavy, overcast that presses on your shoulders. You step into the open air, but there is no freshness. It smells like burning rubber and old oil. Someone runs engine tests near the hangars. Someone else shouts about a missing wrench. A jeep backfires in the distance, and 3 men instinctively duck. You light that cigarette after all. You do not want it, but you cannot stand doing nothing while your mind fills the gaps with images from last week's mission. You inhale, exhale, and stare at your boots, caked with dirt no one can identify anymore. You tell yourself the food is sitting well. It is not. Your stomach is tight, and your hands have not stopped twitching since before breakfast. Someone says the next mission might go out at dusk. They do not say what the target is. You do not ask. If it is yours, you will learn in the briefing. If it is not, you will still be listening for names that do not return. Either way, you will eat the same meal tomorrow. Powdered eggs, spam, a little more anxiety than the day before, and maybe a cigarette to wash it all down. You have been issued a uniform. Technically, you were given one the day you arrived and told to make it last. That was not a suggestion. That was policy. There is no wardrobe rotation. There is no winter gear versus summer gear. There is just one standard issue set of government-regulated discomfort that you are expected to wear through all weather, all missions, and all states of personal hygiene. Let us start with the fabric. Wool. Thick, scratchy, barely processed wool. If it is not wool, it is canvas. And if it is not canvas, it is some mystery blend that feels like burlap soaked in disappointment. No matter the material, it does 2 things extremely well. Trap heat when you do not want it, and soak up cold when you least need it. The second it touches your skin, your body starts negotiating with you. You itch immediately. Not a subtle itch, not a maybe it is in your head kind of itch. A full body, am I allergic to military service type of response. You scratch, but it does not help. The wool just fights back harder. Then there is the sizing. Your jacket fits across the shoulders, but cinches at the neck like a medieval punishment device. Your trousers sag in the back, but cut into your thighs like they were designed by someone with a grudge against knees. The boots are either too tight or too loose. Never just right. You stuff the toes with old socks. You line the heels with newspaper. It helps for about an hour until the paper turns into wet pulp and you are walking on blisters wrapped in mush. The boots deserve their own complaint. They are made of leather, stiff, inflexible, and dyed a shade of brown that hides blood surprisingly well. The soles are thick but flat. No arch support, no cushioning, just a solid platform for marching until your spine decides it has had enough. You do not break them in, they break you in. And if they get wet, which they do often, they shrink into a new shape that is somehow even less compatible with human anatomy. The shirt is cotton, maybe. Hard to tell anymore. It used to be white, but it now lives somewhere in the gray-brown spectrum of battlefield camouflage via general filth. The collar never lies flat. The buttons pop open at random, usually while you are trying to look official. The sleeves itch at the forearms, and there is always one thread that tickles the inside of your elbow, like it is trying to drive you slowly insane. Then there is the flight suit. It is supposed to go over your regular uniform, which means you are layering scratchy on top of stiff, topped with zipper seams that dig into your ribs every time you sit down. The suit is not insulated, but it traps heat like it is, unless it is cold out, in which case it becomes a wind tunnel with sleeves. There are pockets everywhere, but none of them are in a place that makes sense. The zipper is stuck half the time, and when you finally get it closed, it locks in your body heat, your sweat, and your regrets. Gloves. Yes, they give you gloves. Thin leather with no insulation, no grip, and a smell that implies multiple previous owners. They are more ceremonial than functional. You wear them because you have to, not because they help. Half the men just cut the fingertips off so they can actually feel the controls. The other half just deal with it even when their hands go numb in the cold. You also get a scarf. Not for style, for survival. It is supposed to keep your neck warm and prevent your flight helmet from chafing your skin raw. It does not do either. It slides out of place every 5 minutes and ends up wadded under your collar, making you look like a man who lost a fight with a curtain. But you wear it anyway because the one time you do not, your helmet rubs a red line around your neck like you tried to hang yourself with wool. The helmet itself is a whole other problem. It is made of thick leather with minimal padding, designed to make you feel like you are doing something important while offering exactly zero protection if you actually hit anything. The chin strap never stays tight. The inside smells like sweat, rubber, and other people's panic. When you add the goggles and the oxygen mask, you are basically blind, deaf, and wheezing inside a leather bag that makes your head itch so badly you consider shaving it just for relief. Every part of the uniform is too much or not enough. Too hot, too cold, too tight, too loose. It is designed to be durable, not comfortable, which means it will survive things you will not. Fire. The wool will char. Cold. It will absorb your body heat like a sponge and never give it back. Rain. Everything you are wearing will soak it up, hold it close, and stay damp for days. And then you sweat constantly. From the marching, the drills, the nerves, the cockpit heat, the fear. The uniform absorbs it all. You cannot wash it properly. There are no laundry facilities. If you are lucky, you rinse it in a barrel, slap it against a rock, and hope the sun is out long enough to dry it. Most of the time, you just wear it wet and tell yourself it is fine. It is not. Your skin protests in the form of rashes, sores, and mystery itches that do not go away. Your underwear situation is equally bleak. 2 pairs maybe, if your supply sergeant is generous. No elastic, no breathable fabrics, just cotton with seams in all the wrong places. You rotate them like you are managing a wartime logistics schedule. If one pair dries, you wear it. If not, you improvise. Hygiene is not about being clean. It is about being just clean enough not to get medically pulled. You remember what it was like to wear real clothes. Civilian clothes. Soft fabric, clean socks, shirts that fit without leaving red marks on your shoulders. Those memories feel like postcards from another life. Now you wear the same outfit every day. And every night you peel it off like a second skin made of sandpaper and regret. And yet, no matter how bad it gets, you keep putting it on. Because the uniform is not just clothing, it is armor. Not the kind that stops bullets, but the kind that hides how tired you are. It tells people you are still functional, still part of the system, still showing up, even when you would rather crawl back into your cot and never get out again. You look around and see the others wearing the same thing. All of you scratched raw, sweat-soaked, patched, and fraying at the cuffs. No one complains. Not out loud. Complaining gets you nothing but an extra chore and a reputation for being soft. So you tighten the belt one more notch. Tug the sleeves down and act like everything fits because you have orders. You have a job. And itchy or not, this uniform goes wherever you do. Into the sky, into the storm, into whatever hell is coming next. The thing about World War II aircraft is that they look a lot more impressive in posters than they do up close. On paper, they are machines of power, speed, innovation. Up in the sky, they are roaring symbols of engineering dominance. On the ground, they are oil-leaking, rivet-rattling bundles of stress, designed by committees and built in a rush by people trying to hit quotas. You do not fly a machine like this. You cling to it and hope it does not kill you before the enemy gets a chance. You walk up to your plane, and from 10 feet away, it is already complaining. One of the ground crews cursing under his breath while tightening a panel that keeps popping loose. Someone else is draining excess fuel from the tanks, and the smell hits you before the breeze does. The aircraft squats on its landing gear like it is tired of being a plane. It is lopsided. One wheel is inflated more than the other, and the nose has a new dent no one will explain. The paint is chipped. The fuselage is streaked with soot. The engine cowling is held closed with more wire than you would like. They call it the bird. You never named it. Someone else did. It always has a name. Something ironic like Lucky Lady or No Worries. Sometimes something cruel like Widowmaker or Last Chance. You do not laugh at the names. Not anymore. Naming it gives it personality. Personality gives it power. And this thing already has enough of that. The wings are long, thin, and slightly bald like they are exhausted. You tap them with the back of your hand as you do your walk around. Not because that helps, but because you have seen other pilots do it, and you are willing to try anything that feels remotely like control. You check the ailerons. They move, sort of. You glance at the propeller. It spins fine when idle, but last week it threw a blade mid-run-up. No one was hurt that time. Under the plane, you duck and inspect the landing gear. It creaks just sitting there. The tires are bald. Not worn, bald. The tail wheel might actually be from a different model entirely. You ask the crew chief about it. He shrugs and says, "It fits, does it not?" You do not push it. You do not have time. You never do. The cockpit is your next stop. Climbing in is a performance. 1 foot on the wing root, 1 hand on the open canopy, a slight shift of weight, and then a slide into the seat that never feels graceful. You sit down and feel every ridge of the frame press into your spine. The seat does not adjust. The rudder pedals are too far if you slouch, too close if you straighten. You compromise by being uncomfortable. Inside the cockpit, it is a museum of knobs, switches, dials, and levers, none of which are labeled in a way that would help a normal human. You have memorized what each one does, because you have to. One wrong toggle, and you are dumping fuel instead of raising the gear. The instruments shake slightly when the plane is at rest. When it is moving, they rattle like they are trying to detach themselves and flee the scene. The control stick is greasy, always, even after a cleaning. You do not know if it is oil, sweat, or the collective residue of fear from every pilot who has gripped it before you. You wear gloves, but it seeps through. You rest your hand on it and feel the plane's attitude literally and emotionally. It is never neutral. It is always slightly angry. Then there is the engine, a radial monster bolted to the nose, big enough to power a tank and loud enough to make sure no one ever forgets it is there. Starting it is a ceremony. Fuel on. Mixture rich. Magnetos live. Prime it. Then you hit the starter and pray. It coughs, backfires, belches smoke, and finally catches with a growl that drowns out every second thought you are having. The whole plane vibrates like it is angry to be awake. You check the gauges again. Oil pressure rising. Manifold pressure good. RPM in the green. That is what it says anyway. The needles are not known for their honesty. You learn to read the engine by feel. If something sounds off, it probably is. And if it does not sound off, it still might be. The propeller is a blur now. The ground crew gives you a thumbs up, but they are already stepping back. No one lingers near a spinning engine. They have seen what happens. The plane wants to move. Even with the brakes locked, it lurches forward like a dog on a leash. You taxi slowly, the wheels grinding over gravel and tarmac that has been patched more times than the aircraft. The brakes are touchy. Too much and you will nose over. Too little and you will coast into someone's tail. You pump the rudder pedals to stay straight. Every bump feels like a question. By the time you reach the runway, you are sweating. Not from the heat, from the concentration, from the knowledge that everything from this point on could be the last time you do any of it. The aircraft is lined up. The throttle is pushed forward slowly at first, then all the way. The engine roars. The whole frame shudders like it is going to rip itself apart. You hold the stick back gently until the tail lifts, then forward until you feel that moment. That very brief, very unnatural moment where the wheels leave the earth. You are airborne again. Still not used to it. Climbing is noisy. The wind noise builds. The airframe groans. The engine howls in protest. You raise the gear, or try to. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the left one gets stuck. Sometimes both come up, but the indicator says they did not. Sometimes you just accept that you will deal with it later and keep flying with one foot, imagining the worst. The plane is fast. Not fast enough to outrun enemy fire, but fast enough to make you believe you might. Maneuvering feels like arguing with a tired duck. You can force it, but it takes work. And there is no guarantee it will cooperate. Turns are wide, rolls are slow. You feel every G in your spine, every vibration in your teeth. It is not fluid. It is not graceful. It is like flying a tractor that thinks it is a fighter. And yet somehow this machine still flies, despite the bolts that never stop rattling, the fuel lines that hiss when they should not, and the instruments that seem to play little games with your sense of stability. It stays in the air, not out of loyalty, not because it likes you, but because physics has not given up yet. You level out and check the horizon. It is quiet for now. Just you, the sky, and the deep, constant groan of a machine that was never designed to last this long. You glance at the gauges again. Fuel fine. Oil pressure twitching. Temperature climbing faster than you would like. You make a note to monitor it. Not that there is anything you can do if it spikes. If it goes, it goes. You will know when it does because the engine will stop being loud and start being very, very quiet. You remember when you first saw this aircraft in a photo. Clean lines, sharp angles, gleaming metal under blue skies. Now you sit in a chattering, leaking patchwork death trap that shudders when you bank too hard and has a suspicious tendency to lose altitude when it should not. You are flying a machine built on urgency, patched by necessity, and held together by mechanics who work around the clock and do not have half the parts they need. There is no warranty, no backup, just hope, wire, and your own refusal to panic when something starts smoking mid-flight. And this is the best part of your day. You are summoned before sunrise. That is how it always starts. Not with fanfare or ceremony, just a knock on the tent pole, and someone saying your name like they are asking for volunteers to clean up a toxic spill. You drag yourself out of your cot, half-dressed, eyes gummy with sleep, and immediately wish you were not conscious. Outside, the air is still cold enough to hurt. Fog clings to the ground like it is trying to hide the airfield from the pilots who are about to take off from it. You already know what that means. Visibility is poor, turbulence will be worse, and no one will postpone anything. The pre-flight briefing is in a large tent, or if you are lucky, a wooden shack with enough room for a folding table, a map, and 24 chairs that all wobble. You find your seat next to men who smell like cigarettes, fear, and whatever was for dinner 3 nights ago. Everyone looks half dead. No one makes eye contact. There is a hush like a funeral service without the closure. At the front, there is a chalkboard covered in abbreviations. Flight paths, call signs, radio frequencies, code names for targets that do not sound like places, but sound exactly like things people do not come back from. A captain stands by with a pointer, and you can tell by the bags under his eyes that even he does not want to do this. He starts with the weather, which is always mad. The words scattered cloud, light icing, and moderate turbulence are military code for hope your oxygen system holds, and maybe write a quick letter first. Wind speed at altitude brutal. Visibility depends how much you enjoy flying blind. Icing risk almost definitely. They say it is manageable, but then again, so was last week, and you are still scraping frostbite off your fingertips. Then it is the route. They draw a line on the map. Straight out, long loop, drop your payload, and back. Simple like connect the dots. Except each dot is filled with anti-aircraft fire, enemy patrols, and a growing suspicion that someone in intelligence does not know how to read elevation charts. The target is always strategic. A bridge, a depot, a convoy, something that sounds important enough to justify the fact you will be flying through a gauntlet to reach it. Next up, enemy activity. Reports suggest light resistance. They always suggest that, and they are always wrong. You have been through light resistance missions that ended in flak storms so dense you could walk across the sky on them. German fighters maybe, maybe not. That is the official line. What that actually means is we have no idea. Good luck. Then come the formation assignments. Who is flying where? Who is leading? Who is tail end? Charlie, the last guy in the group, a spot famous for getting picked off like a slow antelope. You watch the assignments appear on the chalkboard and hope your name does not end up at the bottom of any column, because bottom means vulnerable. Bottom means exposed. Bottom means your bait. Call signs are assigned next. Yours is a nonsense word you will not remember until someone shouts it into your headset at 15,000 feet. You scribble it down anyway, along with a radio channel number that may or may not work. Last week, your channel was dead for 80% of the mission. You had to fly home blind and follow a smoke column just to find the airstrip. The guy giving the briefing does not bother dressing it up. He knows what you are flying into. He does not sugarcoat the risk, but he does not dwell on it either. He uses phrases like expected losses and acceptable margin like they are budget items. And maybe they are. Maybe that is how they survive. The guys who send you out turn casualties into math, convert fear into percentages. There is always a moment in every briefing where the room goes quiet. It is never planned. It just happens. Usually after the target is named, or after they mention who did not come back from the last mission, you feel it. A small tightening in your chest, a flicker of something you do not have time to process. You stare at the map and pretend to study it, but you already know it will not matter. Once you are in the air, you will forget half of what has been said and spend most of your time just trying to stay upright. Someone asks a question, not a stupid one, but it gets a dismissive answer. There is no time for details. If you need more information, you will get it from the guy next to you mid-flight through static and engine noise, or you will not get it at all. The briefing wraps up with the usual pep talk, delivered in the tone of a man who stopped believing in pep a long time ago. It is short, be sharp, watch your wingman, check your 6, hit the target, come home. The kind of speech that could be printed on a card and handed out with your dog tags. The mission clock starts now. You have 90 minutes until takeoff. Enough time to double-check your gear, grab another miserable meal, and start regretting every life decision that led to this tent. You stand up with the others. The chairs scrape. Nobody says much. Some nod, some do not bother. You exit the tent into the dim gray light of morning that looks exactly like the dim gray light of every morning since you got here. The engines are already warming up. The flight line is a hive of activity. Fuel trucks, crew chiefs, mechanics moving with quiet urgency like they are defusing bombs because they are. You head back to your tent to suit up. No one walks quickly. There is no rush. Not because you are not on a schedule. You are, but because moving faster will not make the mission come sooner or the nerves go away. Inside your tent, the others are already getting dressed. Flight suits, helmets, gloves, oxygen masks. Everything smells like oil, leather, and a little bit of fear. You go through the motions like you are assembling armor, which in a way you are, not armor to stop bullets. You will not get that. Armor to pretend you are ready to fake it long enough to climb in, take off, and do it all again. Your crew checks in. Everyone is here. No one says anything meaningful, just variations of you good and see you up there. You check your sidearm, even though if it ever comes down to needing it, the situation is already past fixing. You sling your parachute harness over your shoulder and step outside. The wind hits you. Cold, sharp, the kind of wind that makes your eyes water, and your brain start running through every possibility, every malfunction, every burst of flak you might fly into. You try to push it out, but it never really goes away. It just recedes enough for you to keep walking. Your plane is waiting. You are cleared to start engines in 30 minutes. The worst part is this briefing was not even the bad one. This was routine. The calm before the real chaos. Just another day, another target, another forecast of incoming fire and outgoing luck, and you are about to take your seat in the middle of it. There is no graceful way to board a warplane. You do not stroll up and step in like it is a city bus. You climb, you duck, you contort. You shove your gear into a space that is already full, then wedge yourself into a seat that clearly was not designed with humans in mind. Getting into the cockpit is a process of eliminating hope one joint at a time. First, the ladder. If you are lucky enough to be flying something with one, most of the time it is just a wheel strut and whatever handholds you can find that are not covered in grease or about to snap off. Your flight suit bunches up under your armpits. Your parachute pack smacks against your thighs. You lose circulation in one leg before you even get seated. Once you are in, you realize again that this cockpit was not designed by anyone who ever intended to sit in it for longer than 10 minutes. You have about 18 inches of space to exist in total. If you are tall, you are hosed. If you are short and the seat is too high and the pedals are too far, if you are average, congratulations. Everything is still wrong. Legroom, a fantasy. Your knees are pressed up against the control panel. One wrong shift and your kneecap flips a switch labeled something ominous like fuel cutoff or engine fire override. There is no padding, no ergonomics. The seat is metal with a square of what they call a cushion, but really, it is a slab of old canvas stuffed with shredded regret. You would be more comfortable sitting on a toolbox. Actually, some guys do. There is no lumbar support. There is barely back support. You sit at an angle that suggests the designer's primary concern was minimizing pilot survival time. After about 15 minutes in the air, your spine will start filing formal complaints. After an hour, it gives up and just goes numb. The instrument panel is a puzzle board of dials, switches, and gauges arranged with no regard for logic or convenience. Want to check your oil temperature? That is buried behind the radio and half blocked by your throttle arm. Need to adjust the altimeter? Hope you enjoy jamming your wrist into a bolt head and slicing it open while you reach around the yoke. Everything is packed tight because this is a machine of war, not a lounge chair. And safety, that is just a suggestion. The seat harness digs into your chest, like it is trying to remind you of every mistake you have ever made. The shoulder straps are too short, the lap belt too loose, and no one knows what happened to the extra buckles. The parachute, if you even have one that fits, is strapped to your back in such a way that if you ever do need to use it, your biggest problem will be trying to reach it while panicking. There is no insulation. The cockpit is either freezing or roasting, depending on the altitude and how many holes the airframe picked up during the last mission. There is no heat, no airflow. The only breeze you get is from a draft near the canopy that sounds like a dying kettle and lets in just enough outside air to make your teeth hurt. Everything is loud. Not just loud, assaultive. The engine is directly in front of you, roaring at full throttle with the subtlety of a thunderstorm in a drum factory. Your headset filters some of it out, but not enough. You will go partially deaf before your tour is over, and everyone knows it. Most of the guys already lip-read more than they listen. The vibration is constant, not gentle, not soothing, aggressive. The whole airframe shakes like it is about to fall apart, and sometimes it does. The throttle buzzes under your hand. The pedals pulse under your boots. The stick wobbles, flexes, and occasionally jolts, just to remind you who is really in charge. And then there is the smell. Oil, gasoline, sweat, burnt rubber, leather that is never cleaned. The musty stink of your own gear after 4 straight missions in the same flight suit. It is a stale cocktail of panic and petroleum, and it hits you the second you seal the canopy. If you are in a bomber, it is somehow worse. You are not even in the cockpit. You are crouched in a metal tube with 4 other guys, each assigned to a position that sounds impressive, but really just means try not to freeze to death while handling weapons near your friends' heads. No seats, just benches or crates. You rotate sitting and standing in shifts, not for comfort, but because everyone's body eventually gives out from squatting in a tin box for 6 hours. Movement is a joke. If you want to shift positions, you need to unplug from your oxygen line, duck under wires, crawl past the bomb bay doors, and avoid stepping on your crew's faces. One bump of turbulence, and someone gets a boot to the jaw. You cannot stand. You cannot stretch. You can barely scratch your leg without triggering a full-body chain reaction of curses and clattering gear. You think about the planes back home, the ones in air shows and museums. Polished, quiet, spacious, clean. These are not those planes. This one is a patchwork of repairs, dents, and smells. And it does not care that you are uncomfortable. It is here to fly barely, and maybe make it back. That is it. You lean back a 1/4 inch as far as the seat lets you, and try to breathe normally. But the oxygen system wheezes like an asthmatic accordion, and you are suddenly aware that if anything goes wrong up here, your comfort level is the absolute last thing anyone is going to worry about. Your body aches already. You have not even taken off, and it is only going to get worse. You are sitting in the cockpit now. The pre-flight checks complete, the engine noise steady, and the canopy sealed. The mission has not started yet. Not technically, but you can feel it pulsing underneath everything. It is not nerves. Not just that. It is the knowledge that for the next few hours, you are locked inside a flying oven full of flammable fuel. Old wiring and people pretending they are not terrified. The air inside the plane is thick. Not warm, not cold, just wrong. It clings to your face under the oxygen mask, fills your nose with a blend of chemical residue and bad decisions. You cannot describe it to someone who has not been here. It is not one smell. It is dozens layered and baked into the metal of hundreds of missions. It is old oil soaked into the instrument panel. It's grease smeared on every reachable surface. It is sweat from every pilot who sat here before you and did not come back. You try not to breathe too deeply. Not because it is dangerous, but because the air tastes like something died and then decided to stick around. It is stale, metallic, burnt. There is a sourness to it, like old rations reheated one too many times. Someone vomited in this plane last week, and you are not entirely convinced the smell ever left. Maybe it just changed shape. You can smell fear, too. Not in a poetic way, literally. It has a scent, acrid, sharp. It is in the sweat soaked into your gloves, in the damp collar of your flight suit, in the helmet that someone else wore before you. It builds up on long flights when no one speaks, when the engines get too quiet or too loud, when your eyes are locked on the horizon, waiting for traces to show up like fireflies that kill. Then there is the food, or what is left of it. Someone brought rations on the last flight. Canned meat, hard tack, whatever passed for lunch in a war zone. Half of it spilled. Maybe during a jolt of turbulence. Maybe during evasive maneuvers. Does not matter. What matters is that now it is part of the aircraft's atmosphere. You cannot see it, but you can smell it. A low, lingering stench of processed meat, old gravy, and something that might have been a potato. There is a stain near your left foot. You are not sure if it is food or oil. Either way, it is sticky. The air system is not helping. There is a small vent meant to circulate air. Just push it around in lazy circles. You reach up and try to redirect one, but all it does is blow the same foul-smelling dust across your face like a fan in a locker room that is never cleaned. You give up. There is no fresh air in here. There never is. In bombers, it is worse. You are trapped in a metal tube with a half-dozen other men, each wearing gear that has not been washed in weeks, breathing through masks that smell like a dentist's office soaked in axle grease. Someone is always chewing gum to keep their ears from popping. Someone else is eating a ration bar that smells like pencil shavings and peanut dust. It floats through the air, joins the cocktail of odors, and lingers longer than it should. You learn not to notice it after a while. Your brain adjusts. You shift focus. But then someone lets out a nervous cough or shifts in a seat and unearths a new scent, and it is all back. One guy once brought hard-boiled eggs on board. The rest of the crew nearly threw him out at 10,000 feet. You joke about it now, but only because humor is cheaper than a breakdown. Your mask is supposed to help. It does not. The oxygen does not smell clean. It smells dry, like air stored in a basement. It dries your mouth out within minutes, makes your lips crack. Your breath fogs the edges of your goggles. And when you clear it with a glove, the scent of your own sweat is trapped inside. You live in it now. It is your climate, your personal biome of fear, oil, and the ghost of canned meatloaf. You think about air back home. Clean, grassy air, ocean breeze, city streets after a thunderstorm, even the smell of gasoline at a filling station. You would trade for that in a heartbeat. But here in the cockpit, there is only one flavor of atmosphere: survival-grade recycled panic. There is also the smell of heat. You did not know heat had a smell until now. It does. Electrical heat, engine heat. The inside of the cockpit bakes under sunlight, and all those metal surfaces radiate warmth like the inside of a broken toaster. Your knees start to sweat. Your armpits are soaked. Your gloves get clammy, and the mask over your face feels tighter with every breath. You peel it off for a second and immediately regret it. The rush of stale air makes you gag. You snap your mask back on and try to forget what you just tasted. And yet somehow, the worst smell is silent. When everything goes quiet, when the crew stops talking, when the engine hits that certain tone, the stink becomes louder. It fills the void. It becomes all you can think about. It reminds you that you're not in a state-of-the-art machine built for comfort. You're in a flying dumpster filled with aging machinery, combustible fluids, and 6 other guys holding in their fear like it's a bodily function. You notice things in those moments. The whiff of hydraulic fluid leaking under the seat. The trace of gun oil near the trigger on the turret. The faint hint of something burnt that no one else has acknowledged yet. You don't mention it. You never do, because once you point it out, it's real. And if it's real, it might be serious. And if it's serious, it means you rewriting a barely functional tin can into open sky with an engine that smells like a ticking time bomb. Someone else must have noticed. You glance over. The guy on the gun is sniffing subtly, like he's trying to decide whether it has the ammo belt or his own jacket that smells like hot glue and battery acid. The navigator pulls his scarf tighter, mumbles something, then opens a tiny vent above his station. It lets in a breeze that makes the whole compartment feel like it dropped 10 degrees, but the stink just clings harder, like it's offended by the attempt to escape it. You eat mints. You chew gum. You rub a little menthol on the inside of your collar, but it mixes with everything else and turns into a whole new brand of awful. Your sense of smell becomes a battleground, and you're losing. You stop trying. You get used to it. You must, because you don't get a break from it. Not midder, not when you land, not when you peel off your gear and stagger back to your tent. The smells follow you. They've soaked into your skin, your hair, your clothes. You smell like the cockpit now. People notice. The ground crew leans away when you walk past. The cooks wince when you line up for dinner. Your tent mate stops asking what you've been flying because he can already tell. You scrub yourself raw with cold water and harsh soap. It helps for a minute. Then you climb into your bunk, and your blanket still smells like engine fumes and rubberized canvas. You roll over and press your face into the pillow, and it smells like the oxygen mask. You dream of oil, of static, of air that tastes like aluminum. And in the morning, it starts again. You wake up, zip up the same sweat-stained flight suit, and breathe it all back in. Because out here, you don't get fresh air. You get recycled history, steeped in grease, fear, and a sandwich that no one remembers bringing. You put it on because you're told to, because everyone else is wearing one, because it's part of the checklist, but there's no real confidence behind it. Just habit, regulation, and the kind of blind faith that comes from knowing the alternative is worse. It's called a flak jacket, but it's not the sleek body armor you've seen in movies or training posters. It has more like a heavy quilt someone filled with broken car parts and then dared you to wear during a fistfight with gravity. First thing you notice is the weight. 40 pounds, give or take. It doesn't sound like much until you re-wearing it over your flight suit under your harness while ducking through narrow passages inside an aircraft, vibrating at high speed. The jacket pulls at your shoulders. It pinches your neck. The longer you wear it, the smaller you feel inside it, like you're being slowly compressed into the shape of a very tired bullet sponge. The material is canvas, thick, stiff, unforgiving, the kind of fabric that absorbs sweat immediately and then refuses to let it go. You put it on dry. You take it off soaked. The inside is lined with padding that isn't soft. It's just more layers of dense, scratchy misery pressed directly against your spine. There's no ventilation, no airflow, just you wrapped in your own damp regret. It smells like copper and desperation. Every time you adjust it, you get a whiff of the iron dust that never quite washes out. The armored plates inside, if you're lucky enough to get a newer model, are curved metal inserts that dig into your ribs when you sit. If you got the older version, congratulations. It's filled with hundreds of small metal fragments sewn into the lining like industrial sand. The logic being, maybe if there's enough junk in the way, some of it will catch a piece of incoming flak before it finds your lungs. Does it work? Sometimes, maybe enough to convince people it's worth the effort. But you've seen jackets pulled off after a mission, soaked in blood, torn open like paper bags. You've heard the stories. Guy gets hit. Jacket stops the big chunk, but sends 50 tiny bits of shrapnel bouncing around inside. It's like being shot and then bludgeoned by your own protection. You put it on anyway, because something is better than nothing. And because the guy who decided not to wear his last week came home zipped in a canvas bag, it doesn't make you feel safe. Nothing does. It makes you feel heavy, slower, clumsier. Your movements are stiff. You can't twist fast enough to check your 6. You can't reach over your shoulder without lifting the whole slab of armor like it's a reluctant backpack. Try sprinting in it across the tarmac to your aircraft when the alarm goes off. You'll be sweating through your undershirt before you even start the engine. Inside the cockpit, it's worse. The seat was already too small. Now it's impossible. The jacket pushes you forward, scrunches your shoulders, limits how far you can lean. You lose feeling in your thighs from the pressure on your hips. Every turn, every lean toward the instrument panel feels like a test. You don't get to shift positions to stay comfortable. You shift because you're trying not to go numb. If you're in a bomber, it's a little roomier, at least in theory. But you're still ducking through narrow corridors, crawling under beams, rotating through gunner positions that weren't built with full-body armor in mind. You bash the jacket against every bulkhead, every hatch, every sharp corner. It catches on knobs. It knocks over gear. One guy ripped his oxygen line out last week, trying to turn too fast, spent 2 minutes choking before someone noticed. Got lucky. You start sweating early. The jacket traps heat like a bad secret. You feel it build across your back, pooling under the straps, rolling down your spine in slow, sticky waves. Your gloves soak through. Your shirt clings. You tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself it's worth it. You say anything to keep from ripping the thing off mid-flight and chucking it out the hatch. But you keep it on because flak is no joke. When it hits, it doesn't tap politely. It shreds. It rips through metal like paper, tears through skin like cloth. You've seen it. You've felt the plane lurch as a burst detonated too close. You've heard the ping of fragments bouncing off the fuselage, the dull thump of one hitting the tail, the sudden silence when someone's mic goes dead. The jacket won't save you from a direct hit, but maybe, just maybe, it'll stop the piece headed for your heart. Every guy has his own way of dealing with it. Some wear it religiously. Some strip it off the second the wheels leave the ground and sit on it instead, hoping it'll protect their spine in a crash. Others fold it up and use it as a footrest, muttering something about comfort kills. The rule book says, wear it. But once you're in the air, rules start to bend, especially when survival feels more like chance than protocol. Some guys modify theirs, cut slits in the sides to move better. Add padding under the shoulders. Replace lost metal tiles with bits of scrap they find lying around. You're not supposed to, but no one stops you because command knows this gear wasn't built for comfort, and it wasn't built for you. It was built in a rush for a war moving too fast, designed by people who weren't the ones being shot at. You start to hate the jacket quietly. You hate the smell, the weight, the way it reminds you constantly that you're fragile, that someone thought you needed armor because you being flung through the sky inside a bomb magnet, that they didn't have time to make it better. So this will have to do. And somehow it does. When the mission ends, you peel it off slowly. Everything aches. You set it down like it's made of glass, even though it's clearly made of iron in contempt. You sit still for a minute, spine decompressing, arms tingling, sweat drying on your neck, a reminder you're still alive. You stretch and feel the weight still pressing on you. Even though the jacket's on the floor, you don't complain. Not really. You crack jokes. You call it your sweaty shield, your portable coffin, your extra burden. You hang it up with care because you'll need it again tomorrow. You always need it again tomorrow. 'Cause flak doesn't care that your back hurts, and the sky never stops shooting. You don't want to end up in a dogfight. No one with a functioning survival instinct wants that. People talk about them like they some kind of ballet pilots locked in an elegant high-speed jewel, looping and diving like knights of the sky. That's fiction. Dogfights aren't graceful. They're chaotic, fast, terrifying, messy. They don't feel like a jewel. They feel like being hunted. And unless you're in the faster, higher-flying plane, which, spoiler, you're probably not, you're the one being hunted. It starts with a glint. That's all. Just a flash of light on metal. And suddenly, your heart forgets how to beat properly. You squint. You lean forward. Your hands go tight on the stick. Your stomach drops. Another glint. Then another. They're not birds. They're not friendly. You know, before the call comes over the radio, and then someone yells it. Bandits. Usually followed by a direction you can't parse because everyone's shouting at once. You scan the sky frantically. 10,000 feet high. Where is that? A contrail. Are they already diving? You spot them. 3, 4, maybe more. Small silhouettes against the sky, moving fast, and you already feel your mouth go dry. They're higher than you. Altitude is everything in a dogfight, and they've got it. You're about to be on the menu. They come in fast, like insects with cannons. You never hear them right away. It's the bullets that introduce them. Tracers slice across your field of view. The first burst misses, the second doesn't. Something funks hard against your fuselage. No explosion yet, just the horrible realization that you're not invincible, not even close. You jerk the stick hard, too hard. The whole plane groans in protest. You roll into a dive, pulling G's that press your brain into the back of your skull. The cockpit tightens around you. The stick shakes in your hands. You can't see them anymore. You don't know if you lost them, or if they're lining up another shot. You bank, climb, drop, roll. There's no strategy. Not now. Just instinct and fear. You were trained to maintain advantage, but no one tells you what to do when the advantage was never yours. The sky is spinning. You see the ground, then clouds, then the sun, then back to the ground. It has a blur of horizon lines and the sound of your own breathing, amplified by the mask pressed too tightly against your face. The G-force pulls at your body like it is trying to rip your soul out through your boots. Your arms go numb. Your legs feel like sandbags. You can't turn your head fast enough. Every time you glance over your shoulder, the delay costs you seconds. And seconds up here are bullets. You spot one. He's behind you now, riding your tail like he owns it. You make a hard turn. He follows. Another turn. Still there. You dive. Pull out. Dive again. He sticks. You can't shake him. You can't outer him. He's lighter, faster, hungrier. You try a trick they taught you, scissors, jinks, snap rolls, but he's too good. Or maybe you're too tired. Or both. Someone screams over the radio. You think it's for you. You can't respond. You're too busy not dying. Another burst. This one's closer. You hear it, a rattling, tearing noise. You don't look. You don't have time. The control stick pulls left. You fight it. Maybe it's a fuel line hit. Maybe a control surface. Doesn't matter. You level off barely and dive again. Then a miracle. Another friendly cuts in. You catch it out of the corner of your eye. Another shape diving fast, guns flashing. Your pursuer breaks off. You don't question it. You don't even thank them. You just breathe or try to. Your lungs don't want to cooperate. Your chest is too tight. You realize you've been holding your breath since the first tracer passed your nose. You're still in the sky, but you're not safe. Not even close. More enemy aircraft are circling. Every second is a roll of the dice. You scan constantly now. Above, below, behind. Your neck aches. Your eyes sting. Your jaw is locked so tight you'll feel it for hours. You catch another one behind a cloud. He's climbing slow. You dive on him. For a second, you forget everything, the fear, the noise, the aching arms. You just fly. You line up the shot. Your thumb hovers over the trigger. He breaks right. You follow. You fire. Nothing hits. He rolls, dives, disappears. Gone. Your hands are shaking. You're sweating inside your gloves. Your mask is damp. Your goggles are fogging again. You blink hard and shake your head, trying to stay clear. You're not even sure which direction home is anymore. You rely on the compass. You don't trust it, but it's all you've got. More radio chatter. Some of it's panicked. Some of it's just noise. You hear one call sign, then nothing. Just silence. No confirmation. No mayday. No goodbye. Another burst, not you this time. You spot the source. Two planes spiraling in the distance. One trailing smoke. You can't tell who's who. You don't want to. You turn away. You have to. Eventually, it ends. Not because it's over. Not because someone calls it. Not because there's no more gas. Not because the targets are hit. The rest of the squad's just trying to get out alive. You form up the survivors, shaken. You fly home in a loose trail. No one in tight formation anymore. No one pretending this was a clean run. The landing is rough. You bounce once, twice, skid. Your tires hold. You slow to a crawl. You taxi in silence. You shut down the engine. The noise dies, and it's worse than the battle. The silence is too loud. You climb out of the cockpit on legs that barely work. Someone asks if you're okay. You nod. You lie. You make a joke that doesn't land. You walk back toward the tent. Someone else is crying quietly. You pretend not to notice. You don't want to know who didn't make it, not yet. Dogfights aren't games, not heroics. They're panic in 3 dimensions. They're a test you never studied for. You don't win a dogfight. You just survive one. Or you don't. And the sky doesn't care either way. You knew it was coming. Everyone knows. It's not an if, it's a when. The guns on the ground don't need to find you. They just need to shoot in your general direction and wait. You're flying through a sky full of guesses, and one of them is going to be right. When the flak starts popping around your plane, it's not a surprise. It is the moment your brain decides to scream into a corner of your skull and let your body handle the next few minutes. You spot the first black puff ahead, distant, almost harmless looking, like someone's lighting smoke signals below. Then another, and another. It's not random. It's a wall, an invisible curtain of metal, fire, and pure bad luck. You're going to fly straight through, because that is what the mission says. There's no dodging it, no going around. The formation stays tight, altitude locked in. You grit your teeth and hope your number's not written on the next shell. Then it hits, not directly, not yet, just the shockwave. Close enough to rattle the wings, throw your instruments off kilter, punch your heart up into your throat. You grab the stick harder, not because it helps, but because letting go feels worse. The cockpit fills with sound. Metallic pinging as shrapnel dances off the fuselage. A low thunk from near the tail. A sharper crack behind your head that might have been a hit or just your nerves. Your co-pilot shouts something. You shout back. Neither of you hears anything. You just keep flying. The plane groans like it's alive and unhappy. Controls tighten, then loosen. Something's different, but you don't know what yet. You glance at the gauges. One's dropped oil pressure a little. Maybe it will hold. Maybe it's already leaking behind you in a trail you can't see. Another burst, closer. Sky flashes white, then black, then blue. Goggles darken with soot. Ears ring like a dropped church bell. Somehow, you're still flying. Armor on the plane is thin aluminum designed to carry bombs, bullets, or fuel, not survive hits. If black catches you wrong, it'll punch a hole through the fuselage like paper. Doesn't matter how fast you're going. Doesn't matter how skilled. A direct hit, and you're just vapor. You hear a bang near the nose. Don't look. Don't have time. Wait for the follow-up. Smoke, fire, sputtering engine, but it doesn't come. Not yet. Flying a bomber is worse. You're not alone. 6 or 7 other people, hoping the thin aluminum above their heads stops hot, jagged steel traveling at the speed of anger. No armor in the floor. No shield for the belly gunner. If something comes up through the bomb bay, it's over. You hear the 50 cal gun bursts. Defensive fire. Feet feel the airframe vibrating with each shot. You wonder how many rounds are left. You wonder if it matters. The light shifts. Another puff, dead ahead. Flak is closer now. They've got your altitude. You pull left, then back right, trying to stay unpredictable. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to maintain course. But staying predictable is how they kill you. You try to thread the needle. Doesn't feel like a needle. It feels like flying through a junkyard with the lights off. Another impact. This time, you feel it in your spine. Something slams into the belly. Nose dips for a second before the trim catches. Alarms flicker. Nothing steady, just low enough to wonder if something vital got clipped. You ask the crew if they're okay. One swears. Another says he's fine. You don't ask twice. If someone goes quiet, you'll find out soon enough. You catch yourself hoping the guy loading the anti-aircraft guns below overslept or miscalculated or spilled his coffee on the fire control table. Maybe the rounds are duds. Maybe today the math breaks in your favor. But hope is not armor, and prayers don't patch holes. You scan the wings. Still attached. No smoke. That's good. You smell something burned rubber fuel. Hard to tell. Always something. You tap the fuel gauge. Doesn't move. Tap again. Still nothing. Pretend it's just stuck, not leaking. The flak keeps coming. It doesn't care you've been up for hours, knees locked, goggles fogging, hands cramping, nerves fraying to wire. Doesn't care you haven't seen your family in a year. Doesn't care you signed up because a recruiter made it sound like adventure. It just keeps exploding. Indiscriminate, relentless, cold math from the ground, trying to erase your name from the sky. Another burst. Left engine coughs. Just once. Then fine again. Note it. Add it to the list of things to worry about later, if there is a later. In the back, the radio man swears. One of the antennas got clipped. He's trying to rewire something, while the plane bucks and rocks like a canoe in a hurricane. You don't know what he's saying. Static. But you know the tone. A sound of someone realizing their backup plan just went up in smoke. Eventually, you punch through it. Flak ends. Don't know how. Don't ask. Out the other side, still flying. Whole or close enough. Look around at the rest of the group. Fewer planes than before. You don't count. Not yet. Not until you land. The quiet after flak isn't comforting. It's suspicious. You brace for something else, fighters. More bursts. Engine failure. You wait. Breathe. Loosen your grip on the stick. Fingers shaking. Palms soaked. You made it this time. But the next run is already waiting. And so is the next wall of fire. The sky isn't yours. It belongs to the ones shooting up. You're just another target passing through. You land in one piece somehow. Tires screech, plane shudders, nose dips, but you're still here. Taxi off the strip. Heart still pounding. Hand still gripping the stick too tightly. Like letting go now would make the whole thing fall apart. Engine sputters as it idles down. You don't flinch. No cheering. No welcome wagon. Just a few ground crews squinting at the fuselage, calculating damage before you even pop the canopy. You cut the engine, flick switches off in a daze, sit for a second, breathing or trying to. Every muscle screams. Mouth dry. Don't remember blinking for the last 45 minutes. Slide the canopy back, climb out slowly. Legs wobbly, back tight, arms heavy, like you just did 100 push-ups in a sauna while being screamed at.